Well, good morning on this Wednesday morning. Sorry. I have been sick most of the night, so I'm not sounding too good this morning. Let's start off the morning with a song by the Primitives, He's Still Passing By. I need him to pass by this morning. Primitive Quartet singing for us on Wednesday. Enjoy.
When Jesus passed by, the dead would arise.
Thank God. Sing it, boys.
He opened their eyes. The lepers were cleansed. The dumb made to talk. The lame and the crippled would rise up and
Walk. And he's still passing by.
He's still passing, yes, he's still passing by. He still extends mercy today. The blood that was shed on Calvary's tree still washes our sins all away. Jesus passed by, a woman was there, with an issue of blood, the Bible does say. She spent all she had.
Hey, Miss Leah, good to see you this morning.
But when she touched his garment, she was made whole. One night on my knee, at an altar of prayer,
Amen.
Jesus passed by and rescued me there.
All right.
I called on his name
Come on, folks. It's 2 minutes till.
while he was there. What a wonderful change when Jesus
Pass
passed
by. And he's still passing by. He's still passing by.
He still extends
Mercy today. Hey, Amber. Good morning, Miss Amber. Up on Calvary's street, and my sins all away. Well, that's the Primitive Quartet this morning. He's still passing by, and I'm glad he is. Hope you're doing good. I'm Brother David Harrison. This is the Preacher's Podcast on this Wednesday morning. So I hope you're doing well. We'll have another song by the Primitives, a little bit of that. Hey, Miss Carmi, good to see you. Folks are logging in. So let's have a little bit more of the Primitive Quartet while folks are tuning in this morning.
Jesus told his disciples of things to come.
Come on, sing it, boys. I need it.
Would be persecuted.
I need this morning.
The Son of Man would die on the cross, but he wouldn't stay dead.
He wouldn't stay dead. He didn't stay gone. He didn't stay dead, and he won't stay gone. No, he's coming back. He's not going to stay gone.
Jesus is coming. Jesus is
He's going to prepare a place, but he's coming back. Amen. He didn't stay dead, and he won't stay gone. Stay gone.
He's coming back. In the Bible we're told he surely shall come, like the thief in the night.
Hey, Brother AP, Brother Archie, good to see you, buddy. Come on, boys, sing it.
All kings who
didn't stay dead, and he won't stay. Yeah, he's coming back. Hallelujah. He didn't stay dead, and he won't stay gone. He said, if I go away, I'll come again. He's coming. Could be today. Could be today. I wish it was. Oh, I'm so ready. Come on, Lord Jesus. He didn't stay dead, and he won't stay gone. He didn't stay dead, he didn't stay dead, and he won't stay gone, won't stay gone. Well, that's the Primitive Quartet out of Canton, North Carolina, and they're singing, he didn't stay dead, and he won't stay gone. I sure am glad for that. Well, good to see you on this Wednesday morning. I'm looking outside. I see just a little pile of snow here and there. Most of it's just about gone. We got up into the 60s yesterday. My wife and I went out for a few hours and went and got a little food to eat. We stopped down here at our local Mexican restaurants, just about a mile and a half, 2 miles from home. And we had Mexican. I had me a burrito and a beef burrito with rice and refried beans. And had some dip, some chips and dip, and so we had a good time fellowshipping. Then we had to do some errands. We'd go by the post office and the bank, and I had to go by the Walmart to get a money order, and we paid our light bill, we pay our power bill. Excuse me. You can do that at Walmart. We own Appalachian Power, and you can go to Walmart to the counter there and pay our power bill in person. So we just go by there and pay our power bill. And it was a little higher this month than it normally is because we've had such a cold month, but not as high as I thought it'd be. This house is really easy to cool and not too bad to heat. So that was not as bad as I thought it'd be, and so this is probably the worst month we'll have. And it should start getting warmer. I looked at the forecast for the next 10, 12 days, and we're looking at the 40s and 50s and some 60s, so we're coming out of the worst part of the winter, because here it is. Today is February the 11th. So we're almost halfway through February, and then just a few more weeks in March, and winter's over. As far as the date on the calendar, that doesn't mean much in Tennessee. We could be in wintertime until April in Tennessee. We have had snow in April out here several times. I remember snow in April. So anyway, but I hope you're doing good. I'm kind of dragging this morning. I hate to come on here and always complain. I'm not trying to complain. But I woke up about 3 o'clock this morning, and I was sick. I was congested. My nose was running. I was congested. I was coughing. And so I got up and kind of get myself composure where I could lay back down, and laid back down. And I never went back to sleep. I finally got up about 4:15 or 4:30 and came downstairs and sat in my recliner and read a little bit and did a few things on my phone and just kind of waited for the sun to come up. You know how that is. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning, you know. You get in the nighttime and you feel bad and you're begging for the morning to come, and so it finally came. And so anyway, we're up and at it. I'm not at it too quick and not rushing too much this morning, but I don't know if I'm coming down with something or if it's just allergies. I don't have a clue, but we were out yesterday, and there's so many germs. It may be weatherly, it may be allergies. We here in Kingsport, Eastman Chemical Plant puts so much stuff into the air, and so it always messes with your allergies. And so it could be allergies, but my throat, I finally got it cleared up enough to talk this morning. But it was all rattly, and my sinuses, they're not too bad right now. They're open, and so, but it is what it is. I don't know if I'm getting sick. I was out yesterday, and there's so many germs everywhere you go. I try to keep my hands clean. I've done that for years, especially during cancer. I had to really watch about going out, and I always keep sanitizer everywhere we go on my hands, because that's where you get most of your germs, is on your hands to your mouth. So anyway, but I'm thankful to be alive another day. We had yesterday was a tough day of just a lot of things just didn't go right yesterday. I won't go into great detail because you've heard the stories before, but I had, years ago, I had a voice problem. I was out in Wyoming in 2010, and I contracted H1N1, swine flu, which was really bad then. It was like COVID was in 2020. Well, I caught it. I'd flown in from North Carolina, flew through Chicago and then to Denver, and then caught a small plane up to Gillette. I was there in a prayer conference in a church there in Gillette, Wyoming, and I got sick. I got there on Monday, and by Wednesday night we were out with the pastor and his wife and some folks in the church eating after the service, and she said, "You don't sound like you feel too good." I said, "I don't." I said, "I've got a sore throat and don't feel good." I had a man traveling with me, and anyway, to make a long story short, I got sick late Wednesday night. Woke up Thursday morning about 3 or 4 o'clock in the motel with him. He was staying in the room with me, and I got sick as a dog. And so I woke him up, and I said, it's about 4 o'clock. I said, I'm going to take a shower, and if I don't feel no better after the shower, I need you to take me to the hospital. Hey, Brother James. Hey, Brother Gary. So I took a shower. My heart was not acting right. I was dizzy. I was just not feeling right at all. Everything was wrong that could be wrong. So after I took the shower, I was really sick. I could barely walk. So I told him, I said, we need to go to the hospital. So he was dressed and ready. So we got in the car. He drove the car around, helped me get out, and took me to the hospital, emergency room. They ran tests, and they said, well, we know that you're sick, but we can't find out what it is. They did some cultures and different things. It took several days, for the cultures and all, but they did tests and said, we don't have anything showing up. And they said, but you are contagious. And so they told me to go back to wherever I was staying and told the boy that was with me to move to a different room. So we got him another room and said, you need to stay in bed, give me some medicine, and said, you stay in bed for 3 or 4 days. And if you get worse, come back. And so that was like on Thursday. And I stayed in the motel Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and they would bring stuff to my door and knock on the door, and I would literally crawl on my knees to go to the door to get. They would have food, they'd have drinks and things, and I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink. I was so sick. And finally on Sunday, I was in the bed in the motel, and I was so sick all day, and I thought I was going to die. So finally, about, I don't know, and my buddy had to fly back. He flew back and left me there in the motel, and the preacher was checking on me and some of the folks in the church. So finally, I guess it was Sunday night late, Monday morning about 3 or 4 o'clock, pushing toward daylight. I got up, took a shower. I walked out to the desk, come back. I wasn't around anybody, but I come back and I called the pastor about 5 o'clock, and I said, preacher, if you can't be here in 15 minutes to pick me up, I'm going to call the 911, because I said, I'm dying. I got to have some help. And so he was there within 15 minutes, had waiting on me at the front. And I held to the side of the wall down the hallway, walking out to the front, and got there, and he helped me get in a car. And we pulled into the emergency room, and the same lady was there in the emergency room that was on Thursday when I checked in. And she said, you're back. And he had let me out, and he was going to park the car. And I walked in, and I was holding one of the columns there in the foyer. And she said, you're back. And I said, yes. And when I said yes, I went to the ground. So she hit a button, and I heard a buzzer go off, and doors opened up, and here come 2 ladies with a gurney coming to get me. And they threw me on that gurney, and back in the emergency room I went. And they had me on all kinds of stuff. They were popping my vein, putting IVs in, running tests. And thank God for the nurse that swabbed my nose that morning. And she did a test, and it came back I had H1N1. So they immediately quarantined me and put me in ICU, and back in the back of ICU, and quarantined me. And I was the only one in the hospital with swine flu. The last guy that had just left that day, he had left on oxygen, had been in there for 3 weeks and almost died. But I took his place. I was the only one in there with H1N1, and I was at the point of death. So they started calling my family, and I wasn't able to talk much, but I called my wife and told her what was going on. She had been checking on me 4 or 5 times a day. And so I called her and told her what the situation was, that I was in ICU. And the preacher had called and explained everything, and she had talked to the doctors, and they said it'd probably be good if you could get out here. And so we were in evangelism. We were members at Gospel Light Baptist Church in Walkertown. Preacher Bobby Robertson was my pastor. And so the church there at Gospel Light, Preacher Bobby's daughter was one of the secretaries, and she got tickets for my wife and my youngest daughter, Lindsay, to fly to Wyoming to be where I was at. So they flew out to Wyoming, and They couldn't get a flight. You can't just fly into Gillette just any time. So this was like on Monday. I'm in the hospital Monday, and so she starts on Monday afternoon, so they get a flight for Wednesday morning. So they fly out Wednesday morning and finally get to Gillette about Wednesday evening, about 8 o'clock. And they come into my room, and they couldn't come in. They had to stand at the door because everybody come in. All the nurses and doctors had on those spacesuits because I was in quarantine. And I was scared to death. I had people calling from all over the country, preachers calling from all over the country. I couldn't talk. I was just telling them this, thank you, pray, and I was listening. But all the great men of God that I knew were calling because everybody thought I was going to die. I did too. And on Monday evening, this is a story I want to tell. Monday evening, it must have been 7 or 8 o'clock. I'd lost track of time. I'd been in ICU all day, and there's so many tests. They were giving me shots in my stomach for blood clots because the H1N1, one of the problems with H1N1 was blood clots. So they were shooting me in my belly with shots to keep me from having blood clots. And they were giving me medicine, 2 different IVs, and had 2 different bags of IVs going in each arm. And I had all kinds of other medicines, and it was unbelievable. I was on liquids and couldn't eat, and it was just, I was sick. And about 6 or 7 that evening, I guess on Monday, a nurse came in dressed in her spacesuit. I couldn't see her face, just barely. She came in, and she was doing some stuff, checking my vitals and all, and I was crying. And she said, Mr. Harrison, she called me Reverend Harrison. She said, I know that you're really sick. And I was weeping. And I'd prayed, and I told God, I confessed everything I confessed and got everything right with God because I figured I was going to die. And she came in, and I don't know who she was. I don't know what her name was. I don't know nothing about who she was. I just know she was a nurse, and she was an angel that God sent my way. And she was crying. She said, Mr. Harrison, she said, Reverend, she said, I know that you're sick. She said, I ain't going to lie to you. She said, you're a very sick man. But she said, we know somebody that can take care of this. She said, would you mind if I prayed for you? And I said, I sure would love for somebody to pray for me. I said, I sure do need somebody. And she grabbed my hand and started praying for me. And she prayed one of the sweetest prayers. And I'm telling you what, God moved in that room. If you talk about the manifested presence of God, I've never seen God. I've never seen angels. I don't see visions. I don't hear voices out of heaven. But I do know when the presence of God is real. But you're talking about the manifested presence of God in that room. God showed up in that room in Gillette, Wyoming, the ICU department that night on Monday night, 2010, January. And God showed up, and the thing that happened was the peace of God filled that room. And for the first time, God calmed my spirit, and I went off to sleep. And I never worried anymore after that. I was out 4.5 months. It took me out. I was out 4.5 months. I couldn't do anything. It was 2 weeks before I could fly home. They wouldn't let me fly because my lungs were so weak from H1N1 and altitudes. I couldn't get up in high altitudes because I was afraid I wouldn't be able to breathe. So I was 2 weeks, and I couldn't even come out of my room. When I got back to the motel after about 4 or 5 days in the hospital, the doctor told my wife, said, now that you're here, said, you can take care of him as good as we can. He's not contagious anymore. And said, if you'll take care of him and go back to the motel and stay another week or so until he's well enough to travel, he said, I'll check on him again before he leaves. And said, till he's able to travel, said he could probably rest better in the motel and be with you and his daughter. And so they let me go back to the motel. So I stayed in the motel, and I wasn't able to get out of the room for several days. Hadn't eaten much. And I remember the first day I came out of the motel room, it was like a Sunday or a Monday. I think it was a Sunday. And I told my wife, I said, I'm a little bit hungry. And I said, I want to get out of the room a little bit. I said, let's go out and eat the buffet. And I remember when I walked out down the hall, and the manager and all the staff of the hotel, they'd given us the rooms. They'd taken care of all of our rooms. They brought food to our door every day, several times a day. They were bringing cookies, all kinds of sandwiches and drinks. They took care of my wife and my daughter and me. And when we came down the hallway and all the staff saw me, they lined up down the hallway there where the place was where they ate, there at the desk and all. And they started clapping when I came down the hallway. And they were crying and clapping. And I was amazed. And they treated me like a king. And so, from that, I lost my voice after that something happened. I got a HPV virus that invaded my body during that time, and it attacked my voice, and I started what they call recurrent respiratory papillomatosis, which is papillomas. They removed them twice in North Carolina. One time Dr. Quinn did, and then the second time they did at Baptist Hospital, and that doctor ruined my vocal cords. She took a hunk out of the middle of them that destroyed my vocal cords, and I didn't know that till a few years ago. When I went to Johns Hopkins, they found out what she had done. It's too late to do anything about it then. But they had removed papillomas, and that doctor at Baptist had told me I'd never speak again, never preach again, never sing again. And if I spoke, it would be very, very poor quality. And it came to be true. For 10 years, I didn't have much of a voice. I sounded worse than Kermit the Frog. So ever since then, I had a real problem with my voice until about 4 years ago. I searched and prayed, and God sent me to Dr. Simon Best up at Johns Hopkins University Hospital in Baltimore. And I went to him, and he said, I think everything I see we can repair. He said, I think it could be fixed. So he did 2 surgeries on me in 23, right about the time I got cancer, right before I got cancer. He did 2 surgeries, one on the left side. It was 3.5 hours, 3.5 hours on the right side, 2 different surgeries, about 4 or 5 months apart. And he repaired everything. He thought 100% it was cancer. He was, hey, Miss Sherry, good to see you on here. He thought it was cancer, and he was sure it was cancer, and all the biopsies he took while I was in surgery, waiting for him to come back. And he came out and told my wife, he said, I was 100% sure it was cancer, but he said, there's no cancer anywhere. So he did the surgery on my vocal cords, and for the first time, I woke up during the second surgery talking, and first time I'd heard my voice in over 10 years, about 15 years, well, 12 years, and I was crying, excited, and so my voice has been pretty good until I got cancer, and then after all the treatments, my voice has gotten bad again, and some days it's hard for me to talk. I don't have much volume. After I talk for a while, it starts wearing out. You hear it on the internet here when I talk on podcast. Sometimes it's really weak. It gets very high, and singing is almost very impossible. I do try to sing, but it's hard. I never know what's going to come out when I open my mouth, and so I wanted to go back up to Johns Hopkins to see Dr. Best and try to get my voice worked on again. This is no good. Why does this do this all the time? Just when I get to talking about the Lord and what He's done, the devil shows up with a phone call. But anyway, so I called Johns Hopkins this week and tried to book an appointment with Dr. Best, and because of all the changes in insurance, I've had to change my Medicare twice in the last 3 years because of doctors not having contracts with. I had Humana, I had to change. I went from one to Humana, then from Humana to United, and now they don't. I got one doctor that doesn't use United now that I got United. Now my doctor at Dr. Best, they don't take United. So, and you can't go up and self-pay. They won't let you come in and self-pay if you're on Medicare. So I was turned down from getting an appointment at Johns Hopkins yesterday. Very disappointed, very discouraged. And I said, Lord, what are you doing? So we were out and about, and I just started praying. I pulled up, tried to see if there was an otolaryngologist in Kingsport that maybe I could see. And if he doesn't have the ability to help me, maybe he can recommend me to UT in Knoxville or to Vanderbilt over in Nashville. Probably where I'd have to go, because that's, since I'm in Tennessee, that would be probably where United would be accepted. So I got an appointment with Osterhaus, Dr. Osterhaus, an otolaryngologist, but I can't see him until May the 15th. So I went by there yesterday and signed the papers to get all my records sent, and so they're already ordering my records from Baltimore. And she said that once he gets your records and he sees how bad it is, he may try to get you in quicker. Lee, does it hurt? Sometimes it does. It's not painful like real pain, but I have to strain. It hurts my ego and feelings more than anything else, because it's frustrating because I can't talk. Trying to sing and nothing's there. My lows are gone. I mean, I can't, if I try to sing or talk low, my lows are gone. I've got my highs. I can do falsetto, because even during the time that I lost my voice, I developed false vocal cords. They're called false folds. My vocal cords were paralyzed, and the Lord took the fatty tissue on the side of my vocal cords, and they began to come together and flap together, and I was able to speak. It was bad quality, but I was able to speak understandable, but that was false vocal cords. But I can sing high falsetto. But my lows, I can't. Here it starts doing. If I get down here, I can't do it. The lows are gone. And if you hear me coughing a lot, I'm not sick. I cough all the time. That's the nature of the beast. That recurrent respiratory papillomatosis. There's always feels like there's something in your throat. So my vocal cords are probably swollen. So I'm coughing. It feels like there's something in there. And then the last time when I met Dr. Best and Dr. Best started working on me, my vocal cords were covered with some type of bacteria or some type of fungus, but it was thick it looked like white Vaseline, real thick and gooey. So I was on medication for 6 months, steroids and medication, trying to get rid of that stuff so we could work on my vocal cords to see what the problem was. And my vocal cords had grown together from the last surgery. The bottom third, or a little more than a third of my vocal cords at the bottom where the V is, had grown a bridge across there, so I only had about less than 2/3 of an opening, so I didn't have much air. That's why my breathing is affected, because I'm not getting a lot of air. So I'm hoping that this doctor will be able to see it, understand it. So it's pretty complicated. That's why we ended up at Johns Hopkins, the best in the country. Dr. Best is one of the best. He's a Jew from Canada. It's Leah. He came from Canada, one of the top doctors for recurrent respiratory papillomatosis. And I went to him because of that. I had 5 hospitals I was looking to go to, and God directed me to Johns Hopkins, and I know it was God's will. I witnessed to Dr. Best. He's a Jew. He's not a believing Jew, not an Orthodox Jew. He's just a blood Jew. But I witnessed to him. I found real favor with him. He loved me and my wife. My wife really thought a lot of him because he was so nice to us, so kind, and I was really disappointed. Yesterday was a bad, disappointing day for me because I can't see him. And, I mean, I even offered to pay out of pocket. I'll raise the money and pay it out of pocket to do what has to be done, but they will not let me pay out of pocket. That's the law of Medicare. If you have Medicare, you can't see a doctor and pay out of pocket. They just won't see you. They won't schedule you if you got a different. They don't accept my Medicare, but they won't let me pay it on my own. That's just the nature of being old and on Medicare. So anyway, so just make that a matter of prayer. I'm hoping Dr. Osterhaus will see me sooner because my voice is getting to be a problem. That's why I've just might quit singing when I teach. You know, I have to have a microphone to help me out with a lot of volume, and my voice gets real high. And do you think this is funny? And my wife, she thinks it's crazy. She don't think it's funny. She thinks it's crazy. But you'd be surprised how many times when I get a phone call from somebody that I don't know, you know, like somebody calling from the doctor's office, or somebody calling a spam call or something, or somebody calling trying to find David Harrison, and I answer, and they think I'm a woman. If I'm doing business over the phone, I've had more than a dozen times in the last year people think I'm a woman. Thank you, ma'am, because my voice is so high. It's just crazy. So pray that I can see the right doctor. If Dr. Osterhaus is not the right doctor, pray he can recommend me. I'm thinking probably I'm going to end up at Vanderbilt. That's about 4.5 hours away. And that's here in Nashville. And so I don't mind going out there. It's a big hospital. I don't like Vanderbilt. I've been out there a lot with other people, but I don't care one thing about going out there. But I will if I have to. I really like Johns Hopkins. I like the hospital. I like the doctors. And I like how they do things up there, but I can't go. So make that a real matter of prayer. Well, I've wasted about 25 minutes this morning talking about me instead of the Lord. So just need your prayers. Just need your prayers. And I know I ask for a lot of prayers because I have a lot of physical problems. It's just complicated. The voice thing and the cancer and the back issue, those are the 3 main issues that I've dealt with in the last 20 years. And it's just been a nightmare. It really is. It's something all the time. So I'm ready for a new body. I'm ready for a new body. Amen. Amen. I'm ready for a new body. Well, Exodus chapter 19. Let's try to cover as much as we can in the time I've got left, since I've used it up talking about me. But I wanted to share that because a lot of folks have asked about my voice and they don't understand it. So that's the short version. But it started 16 years ago when I got H1N1. I caught an HPV virus, and I came down with recurrent respiratory papillomatosis. RRP is what it's called. You can look it up. It's the same kind, and I don't mean this to sound vulgar or off color, but it's the same disease that a lot of women and people that are prostitutes and stuff, they get this same kind of H1N1 HPV virus, the same thing that causes warts and other things to grow, but it's in their privates and in their other parts of the body. But those same papillomas that grew in my throat is the same HPV virus that causes those things to grow from that lifestyle. It's the same virus. It's an HPV virus, like a hepatitis virus. And it's a rare virus, but it does happen most of the time for RRP. Most of the time it's in young people, babies and young people, not in adults. So it's very rare for me, but I've met several. I talked to one lady that had it, and I heard her before she met Dr. Best, and she sounded worse than I did. I heard a tape of her, and then I heard what she sounded like after that, and she was the one that encouraged me to go up there. And so, but it was just a miracle how God brought my voice back. And so I'm thankful I can talk, and this is 1,000 times better than it was 6 years ago before I had surgery. But my biggest problem is that right there. I constantly, all day long, I cough, and now you hear the rattle. It's constant, and it makes everybody think I'm sick or getting sick, but it's this RRP. And so just pray that God will give me wisdom and God will give me the right doctors, and maybe we can get some help. Exodus chapter 19, I want to start in verse number 1. I'm not sure how far we'll go this morning. This is the beginning of when God gives the law to Israel through Moses and what we know as the Ten Commandments. So let's start in chapter 19, verse 1. In the third month, when the children of Israel were gone forth out of the land of Egypt. So this is the third month now. They're out of Egypt. They're in the wilderness. The same day they came into the wilderness of Sinai. So now they're to the mountain there where God's going to give the law. They were departed from Rephidim. That's where they were at Rephidim, and now they've departed from there. They've come to the desert of Sinai and pitched in the wilderness, and there Israel camped before the mount. So this is where they are now. They've come from Rephidim. Now they're at Sinai. They pitched there. They thrown up their tents. Everybody's there. Everybody's well. They've got water. They had water. They got the Horeb. They've got their animals. They've got meat. They've got manna every day. So everything's going good. So far, verse number 3, Moses went up unto God, and the Lord called unto him out of the mountain. So God calls Moses from the mountain and says, Moses, come up here. Look in verse 3. He said, thus thou shalt say to the house of Jacob and tell the children of Israel. He's got a message for Israel, so he calls Moses to the mountain. He speaks out of Mount Sinai and tells Moses what to say. Verse 4, you've seen what I did to the Egyptians, how I bear you on eagle's wings. Well, I love that phrase. And that phrase, he bore them on eagle's wings, is a picture of grace. The eagle in the Bible is always a picture of deity. It's a picture also of the strength God gives to his children. That's to mount up with wings as eagles. Eagles are a very powerful bird. They're like the jet airplane of the birds. They're the strongest and the fastest. They're so beautiful. That's our national, the bald eagle is our national bird. So he said, but I have brought you this far out of Egypt on eagle's wings, which is a picture of grace. This is a symbol of grace. And J. Vernon McGee talks about that. He said they are passed as the swift ships, the eagle. He talks about some other verses, but he said the eagle is used as a symbol of God, of deity in Scripture. In the book of Ezekiel, deity is represented as the face of an eagle. In the 4th chapter of Revelation, deity is pictured as a flying eagle. The eagle is admired for his wings and his ability to soar to the heights. In other words, the eagle is the jet plane of the bird family. The wings of the eagle are definitely a symbol of deity. God said to Israel in chapter 19 and verse 4, you've seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I bear you on eagle's wings and brought you unto myself. That, friends, is God's marvelous, infinite, wonderful grace. By God's grace, God brought Israel out of Egypt to Mount Sinai. And God has found them helpless and hopeless in the slavery of Egypt. He delivered them. He redeemed them by the blood. The same night they passed over when death came through the land. The children of Israel marched out of Egypt. They came to the Red Sea where Pharaoh could have slaughtered them like animals, but God intervened. He brought them across the Red Sea by power. He has brought them to this place on eagle's wings. And so God makes them understand that all the things He's done, He brought them through the bitter waters. He brought them past Horeb and got water out of the rock. He provided manna and quail. So now He is at the foot of Mount Sinai, and He's reminding Moses to tell Israel that I have brought you here on eagle's wings. I have carried you by grace through the wilderness and provided every need you had. That's a picture of grace. God has brought us from a life of sin and provided us deliverance out of Egypt, redemption through the blood. He's given us living water, the bread of heaven. He's given us strength. He's given us victory over the enemy of our flesh. All of this is a picture of the grace of God, what God has done for us in delivering us out of Egypt on our way to the promised land. So God uses this phrase, on eagle's wings. Now look in verse number 5. He said, now therefore, because of all of this, and every time the word therefore or wherefore is there, you look to see what it's there for. So God says, now therefore, because of what I've done, because of all the things you've experienced and seen, hey, Miss Stacy, hey, Amy. So He said, because of all that I've done, if you will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then you shall be, and here's the first time He uses this word, a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. He says, if you'll obey my covenant and obey my word, He says, you're going to be a rare, peculiar treasure unto me in all the earth. All the earth is mine, but you're going to be a special treasure. But the secret is your obedience to my word. So verse 6. And basically what God is doing here, and this is going to be a change, but God is offering them the grace they have enjoyed versus the law that He's fixing to establish. So far, they've not come here by law. Everything they've experienced since they left Egypt has been by the grace of God. God delivered them by grace, redeemed them by grace, brought them across the Red Sea by grace, fed them water, bread, and quail by grace, put them by the 70 palm trees and the 12 wells of water by grace, gave them victory over the armies of Amalek by grace. Everything that's happened to Israel since they left Egypt has been by God's goodness, God's grace. But now God is saying, you have come this far by grace, but are you willing now to live under the law? You've operated by grace where I've given you everything and done everything for you, but are you willing now to obey my law? He's offering them law for grace. Which one do you choose? Well, I'm glad I chose grace. But they made all these promises. We'll do everything. God said, if you'll do everything, keep my commandment, you'll be a special treasure to me. But they've been brought here by grace, but now God is fixing to give them some laws, and He's going to see if they're going to live by the law. Verse number 6. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. That's also a prophetic preview of what the church is. We're a kingdom of priests, a royal priesthood. God called us that, a kingdom of priests, a royal priesthood in Revelation chapter 1 and verse 5. And so in verse number 6, these are the words which thou shalt speak to the children of Israel. Said Moses, go tell them what I said. So Moses came in verse 7 and called for the elders of the people and laid before their faces all these words which the Lord commanded them. He said, I brought you here on eagle's wings. Everything you've experienced has been by grace. But now if you're willing to obey my commandments and keep my law and keep my words, you're going to be a peculiar treasure for me in all the earth. So he said, tell them that. So Moses calls the elders and spills everything before them that God told him. So now he goes to the people in verse number 8. And all the people answered together and said, here's what they promised God. Boy, this is a big bunch of mouth, big bunch of words. All that the Lord has spoken, we will do. Period. On that day, in verse number 8, all the people said, whatever God asks us to do, we're going to do it. Sure you will. Sure you will. And pigs can fly too. They've lived by grace, and God's put up with their murmuring. They've murmured against Moses. They've murmured against God. They've challenged and said, would to God was back in Egypt more than once. And God says, I brought you here on eagle's wings. You've had it. You've had it made. You haven't had to do a thing but just let me carry you on eagle's wings. Every time you cried, I did what you needed. I brought you meat. I brought you bread. I gave you water. I defeated your enemies. I gave you victory. Everything you needed, I provided. It's been a ride of grace on eagle's wings. Now, are you ready to obey my law? Everything the Lord tells us we will do. Doesn't that sound like a bunch of Christians? Oh, Lord, we'll go anywhere. We'll do anything. God will give it all. We sing it. I surrender all. I surrender all. All to Jesus. I surrender all. And you can't even pay your tithes. All to Jesus. I surrender all to him. I freely give. I will ever love and trust him in his presence they live. I surrender all. Fuss about having to give the mission offering. I surrender all. Preacher says we need some workers. Well, I'm just too busy. I surrender all. We need to go soul winning Tuesday night. How many will go soul winning? I surrender all. Lord, I surrender everything. Here am I, Lord, send me. Well, can you run a bus route? I don't think that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't think I can do that. That's just too much. I surrender all. Some young preacher surrenders to preach, and he says, Lord, just send me anywhere I'll go. Preacher says, we got a nursing home that needs a preacher. Will you go? Well, that ain't really what I want to do. I was wanting to preach in some churches and do some revivals and have some big tent meetings and get some big offerings. And there's a little church down here with about 15 people. It's about to close up. You want to go and preach for them? Well, that ain't really what I had in mind, because, I'd rather preach to a crowd that can put me on as pastor and give me a salary and buy me a new car every 4 years and have a house. And, I appreciate the offer, but that's not really what I was looking for. I surrender all. That's what Israel's saying. We'll do everything God says. Well, look in verse 8. So Moses returned the words of the people unto the Lord. So in verse number 9, and the Lord said to Moses, I'll come to thee in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with thee, and believe thee forever. And Moses told the words of the people unto the Lord. He said, I'm going to come to you in a thick cloud where they can't see me, but they can hear my voice. And they'll know that I speak to you, and they'll believe you forever. In other words, God says, I'm going to endorse you in front of the people, because I'm fixing to give you the law to give to them. And so they will follow you and believe that you are my messenger. I'm going to come to you in a thick cloud. And that's really where God dwells when he appears to his people in the Old Testament. He even promised when he gives the plan for the temple, he says, I will dwell in the thick darkness. Behind the veil was thick darkness until the Shekinah glory came. It was thick darkness. There was no light behind the veil where the Holy of Holies is. There where the altar, the Ark of the Covenant is, there was no light there. There was no lamps there. It was the veil. Behind the veil, there was no light. The only light that came into the Holy of Holies was when the Shekinah glory came. And God says, I will meet you and I will dwell with you in the thick darkness. That's where God came down behind the veil in the thick darkness. And now God is telling Moses, I'm going to appear to you in a thick cloud. And the people of Israel are going to hear my voice talking to you. And they're going to know that I'm God and that you're my servant. And they're going to follow what you say because they're going to know I told you. Sounds like a good plan. And I guess if I was there and I heard God's voice come out of a thick cloud and he was telling me that this is my servant Moses, hear him and follow him, I guess I would be impressed. Hey, Brother Larry, hey, Miss Legenda. I guess I would be impressed for a while and think, yeah, that's really good. And they thought so too. Verse number 10. And the Lord said to Moses, go unto the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow and let them wash their clothes. So he says, go to the people and tell them to start getting ready to meet me, because I'm going to show up in the thick cloud. They need to sanctify themselves. That means to make themselves pure. Wash themselves, put on clean clothes, make themselves holy and presentable, sanctify themselves. Can I just say this without making some of you mad? If it does, I really don't care. when we go to meet God, and I know church isn't the only place we meet God. I meet God here at the house, and I meet Him when I pray. But when I gather with God's people at the house of God to meet God, I try to sanctify myself and present myself to be holy before the Lord. If I was going to meet the president today, I would get cleaned up and put on my best duds. I'd put on my best suit and I'd shine my shoes. I'd make sure every hair was in place because I'm meeting the president. He's to be honored. He's a mighty man of power in our country, to be respected. Why is it we can go to church and we don't feel like we need to prepare ourselves to go worship God at the house of God? Now, I don't mean you got to have a three-piece suit on and a tie, but I think you ought to dress like you're going to church to meet God. I think you ought to put your best on if you can. If your best is a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, come on in your jeans and t-shirt. But if you dress up to go to a funeral and somebody died, why can't you put on your best to go meet somebody that resurrected from the dead? That's neither here nor there. It has nothing to do with the message. But he told them to get sanctified tomorrow. Why? Because he's going to meet with them. And if we're going to go to church expect to meet with God, I think we ought to have our best. They pick at me at church sometimes. Every time on Wednesday night I go in and have several men say, "Man, you look good. You always dress so nice." One guy come in today when it was snowing. We had service on Wednesday. He said, "This is snow night." He said, "It's okay for you to come in. You don't have to dress up." He said, "This is dress down night." I said, "Not for me." I said, "I come to church. I want to dress up." They're not making fun of me. They're picking at me. They know that that's me. When I go to church, I put a suit on. I put a tie on. I'm going to church. I've done that ever since I was a boy. I didn't have suits when I was a boy, but I put on a tie. I put on the best I had. But when I started working in the church and started singing and started traveling and started preaching, I never go to church without a suit on, tie, coat, sport coat, something. I go dressed up because I'm going to worship God. I ain't going to go in there and sit in a pair of flip-flops and a pair of Bermuda shorts. Of course, I don't have no Bermuda shorts anyway. These old white legs, I haven't seen the sunshine in 65 years, I guess. I don't have any Bermuda. I'm not going to go wear a pair of Bermuda shorts and go. I mean, people come into our church that come straight from work, and that's fine. I understand that. And I told my people the same thing. Don't miss church. If you don't have time to go home and get dressed up, that's fine. That's fine. Come on like you are. But if you're able to get dressed up, get cleaned up. Brush your teeth and shave your face, comb your hair, and come to church. My wife, she dresses every day, just like she's going to church. She always dresses. She's a lady. She dresses like a lady. That's just her. I'm the same way. I don't dress like that at home. I'm usually during the week, I've got a hoodie on and a pair of jeans, or right now I got my sweatpants on because I don't go anywhere. I'm not going anywhere today till tonight. I'll put on a suit tonight. That has nothing to do with what I'm saying, except that he said sanctify yourself. God is saying you're going to meet me, sanctify yourself. Well, let's get back to our text. Verse number 11, and be ready against the third day. For the third day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. He said, tell them all to get ready, because on the third day I'm coming down to Sinai, and I'm going to appear to thee in a cloud, and I'm going to speak. So verse 12. So they set bounds unto the people round about, saying, take heed to yourselves, that you go not up to the mountain or touch the border. They put boundaries around the mountain. And Moses says, you can't go any further than this boundary. Don't touch the mountain. Don't go near the mountain. Don't go past where the markers are. We've set up borders. Don't go any closer. Stay where you are. Stay where I've told you. God's going to show up. So don't get near the mountain. Because he said in verse 12, take heed to yourselves that you go not up to the mount or touch the border. Whosoever touches the mount shall surely be put to death. If you touch the mountain when God shows up, you're going to die. Darlene says, good morning from the hospital room. Blessings. Darlene, are you in the hospital? Dear, I'm sorry. I hope you're okay. I didn't know you was in the hospital. Man, let me know what's going on so I know how to pray. Miss Darlene Fan is one of our followers, and she just came on and said she was watching from the hospital room. Well, God bless you, dear. I didn't know you was in the hospital. I'm going to be praying for you. Let me know what's going on. Send me a private message if you don't mind. Verse 13. He said, thou shalt not a hand touch it, but he shall surely be stoned or shot through. whether it be a beast or a man, it shall not live. When the trumpet soundeth long, then thou shalt come up to the mount. He said, don't let a beast, nobody touch the mountain. When the trumpet sounds, Moses, you come up to the mount. So Moses went down from the mountain to the people and sanctified the people. They washed their clothes. He said to the people, be ready against the third day. Come not at your wives. In other words, they weren't supposed to have any relationship with their wives. For 3 days, sanctify themselves. This is a holy thing. Wives and husbands were to be separated, just like in the Bible it says that when a man fasts, he's to be separate from his wife. A time of separation. What does the Bible, how does the Bible use that term in 1 Corinthians chapter 7? They're to abstain is the word God uses. So you know what I'm talking about. I don't even go into detail, but you understand what I'm talking about. No physical contact relationship. Oh boy, Lord help me this morning. Okay, chapter 7, 1 Corinthians, he said, now, nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, let every woman have her own husband. Let the husband render to the wife due benevolence, and likewise the wife unto the husband has power over her own body, so forth. Defraud you not one the other, except if for consent for a time, that you may give yourself to fasting and prayer. He said, don't deny your spouse that physical affection, except when it's time for you to fast. You abstain for a while, but you don't defraud each other what is rightfully supposed to happen between a husband and wife. And this is the same thing Moses is saying. Husbands, don't go near your wives until after the third day. So verse number 16. It came to pass on the third day in the morning that there were thunders and lightnings. So God's fixing to show up. And a thick cloud on the mountain. That's where God's fixing to show up. And the voice of the trumpet exceeding loud, so that all the people that was in the camp trembled. So here's all these people, 3 days getting ready. They're all cleaned up. They're all dressed up. They're all washed up. And all of a sudden, thunders and lightnings and all types of noise. And here comes this great big cloud covering all of Mount Sinai. And the big trumpet blast. And when the trumpet blasts, everybody's afraid. Verse number 17. And Moses brought forth the people out of the camp to meet with God. And they stood at the nether part of the mount. That means it's at the bottom of the mountain, where no man could touch it. Verse 18. And Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke. All of Mount Sinai was covered like a smoke, like a blazing fire, because the Lord descended upon it in fire. That's why it's smoking. God came down in fire, and the whole mountain's on fire. Smoke on the mountain. Verse 18. And the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. So not only is there thunders and lightnings and the smoke, and there's fire, and the trumpet of God is sounding, and beside that now there's this shaking. The whole mountain like an earthquake, and everybody's afraid. You hear my voice getting higher? Okay, so you understand it. So verse number 19. And when the voice of the trumpet sounded long and waxed louder and louder, Moses spake, and God answered him by a voice. So Moses is speaking loud to the cloud over the trumpet sound, and it's getting louder. And Moses, God, I'm here. God, I'm here. Oh, God, hear the voice of your servant. And in verse number 20, and the Lord came down upon Mount Sinai on top of the mount, and the Lord called Moses up to the mount. And Moses went up. So now, not only is this stuff happening on the mountain, but God speaks from the smoke on top of the mountain. He speaks out of the cloud, and he says, Moses, Moses, come on up the mountain. And all the people had to be afraid. Look in verse 21. And the Lord said, Moses, go down. Well, verse 20, the Lord came down and said, Moses, he called Moses up to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. And the Lord said to Moses, go down and charge the people, lest they break through unto the Lord to gaze, and many of them perish. He said, go down and tell the people, remind them not to come through the border. Don't try to peek through the smoke and look and gaze at what we're doing. Because if they touch the mountain, they're going to die. Go warn them again. So verse 22. And let the priests also which come near to the Lord sanctify themselves, lest the Lord break forth upon them. He said, make sure all you priests are holy, Because if they come near me and they ain't holy, I'm going to break forth on them. I'm going to touch them. Verse 23. Moses said to the Lord, the people cannot come up to Mount Sinai, for thou chargest us, saying, set bounds about the mountain, sanctified. He said, we fixed it. We put boundaries around the mountain and we sanctified it. And said they can't go past those boundaries. And the Lord said unto him, away, get thee down, and thou shalt come up, thou and Aaron with thee. And let not the priest of the people break through to come up into the Lord, lest he break forth upon thee. So Moses went down to the people and spake to them. So God says, go down there and tell them that you and Aaron's going to come up and speak to me and stay up here a while and make sure they understand not to break through, because if they do, he said, not only am I going to destroy them, he said, I'm going to break forth on them. And he says, tell the priests, all of them, not to come up, just you and Aaron. Just you and Aaron. Because if they touch the mountain, I'm going to break forth. There's going to be trouble. So God has made it very clear. Now God's fixing in chapter 20 to give the 10 Commandments, the law, to Moses. He's taken all of chapter 19 to prepare for this event. You say, that's a lot of preparation. Well, it is. But it's a serious preparation. He's about to give the law by which they're going to operate on for several millennia. They're going to use the law of Moses that is still intact today. We still quote the 10 Commandments. It hangs over the Supreme Court. It hangs in our Congress. Hangs in many schoolrooms. Hangs in many courtrooms around the country. The law of Moses, still intact. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Thou shalt honor thy father and mother, days that may go on upon the earth. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God, serve him with all thy heart. Shall have no other gods before thee. All those 10 Commandments. Shall not covet thy neighbor's goods, covet thy neighbor's wife. These are still intact. So this is one of the most important events in the life of Israel. Second to crossing the Red Sea, being delivered out of Egypt, the greatest event in the Old Testament in the life of Israel is the giving of the law to Moses on Mount Sinai. It's a great, great event. And God's doing everything he can to make sure that they don't mess it up. Because to mess this up is going to be sure death to everyone that does. And Moses has been given instructions, and Moses has been telling them what God said. And God spoke from the cloud in the presence of the people that heard it, so it would verify to everyone that Moses was God's servant. God's doing everything he can to help Moses be the authority that God's raised him up to be. In spite of the mess that Jethro did with the 70 judges, God's still with his same original plan that Moses is my man, and he's the one you're to follow. So that's chapter 19. I'm sorry we didn't have enough time to go any farther. It was my fault. I got to talking at the beginning about my situation, but I felt like I need to. Hey, son, good to see you. I hope you're all feeling better. Been praying for you. Hadn't bothered you because I know y'all been sick. I was going to text you after a while and see if you've heard anything from Gracie. I was wondering about my cover on my book, but I know you hadn't felt like messing with it. Hope you're feeling better. Tell Laura and Kylie we're praying for them. But it's a big event for them to get the law of Moses, a big event. So we'll be back tomorrow, Lord willing, with chapter 20. We'll pick up in chapter 20. This is the law. We're going to spend some time on the law. We're going to take each one, break it down, show you what it means and how it applies to us today. God's Son fulfilled the law, but that didn't mean the law was done away with. It was wrong to murder in the Old Testament. It's going to be wrong to murder in the New Testament too. All the law is still intact. We just need to remember that. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. Well, I love you all. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for putting up with me. I appreciate you listening to my story this morning as I tried to tell you what's going on with my voice. So understand why it is like it is, what happened to cause this. So you better know how to pray. It's a disease that I'll deal with until the Lord gives me a new body. But I would like to get it tuned up a little bit for another few thousand miles so I could go back to singing and I could teach a little better than I am. My voice would be a little bit stronger. And one of the main things, too, is to try to get this cough cleared up. I may have to be on medication for 6 months to a year, and it's strong medication. It's about as bad as chemo. It's really strong. And when I took it last time, it had a lot of side effects, but it did clear that stuff up. So I may need to have to do that. That'll be fine. If I could just get rid of this cough drives me crazy. It makes me hurt. It gives me a headache. My chest gets so sore, coughing all the time, and nothing comes up. It's just a dry cough, like there's something that I get choked on stuff. Get choked very easily. So hopefully this doctor can either fix me or send me to somebody that can. I know Dr. Jesus can. I'm praying for God to do it. Amen. Well, I love you. I'll see you tomorrow, Lord willing, 9 o'clock, same time. Have a good day. Be careful. Remember us in prayer. God bless.